mind sharing? So Rupa, do you mind sharing the slides, please?
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. One second. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So once again, everyone, welcome. Welcome to the session today. And let me quickly take a couple of minutes before we start the session to give you a very high level overview of Women in Big Data. So Women in Big Data was founded in 2015 with the mission of supporting women in the big data space. You know, we act as a catalyst for them to empower themselves and also to connect with one another and help each other, support with be it technical or, you know, in general development of soft skills. So when Women in Big Data was started, it was started with just 15 members. And as you can see here, we have now grown to over 20,000 members. And we are now spread across, we have 52 chapters now spread across 6 continents. And we are growing very quickly. Next slide, please, Rupa. Yeah, so this is just, you know, just a visual representation of where we are right now. So right now, today's session is hosted by the Women in Big Data Bay Area chapter, but we do have a lot of like 52 chapters, like I just mentioned, and it's growing every month. So we are really excited and, you know, feel free to spread the word around if there are sessions by other chapters also virtually that anybody who's a member of Bay Area chapter can join in. And next slide, please. I'll mention a little bit about our members. So our membership spans across, you know, 4 main segments, such as students. There are people from the early career, mid-career, and also late career. And we have a very diverse skill set. Like you can see, you know, the skill set is spread across job families, and we do our best to bring in programs that kind of covers a wide range of experiences and bring in sessions where we can learn from and support each other at the same time. And we are a chapter-driven organization funded by local partners, and we do provide the opportunity for community members, like I mentioned, to technically upskill themselves as well as develop leadership skills. And we do have amazing mentoring programs. In fact, we have 7 that we launched last year, and we are continuing to add more as time goes by. So please do look out for those announcements. And one more thing that we are working on this year is to provide some entry-level certifications, especially focused on the underserved communities. So groundwork is happening quite a bit for those. So at the end of today's session, we will be sharing with you various platforms that you can find us and how you can get in touch with us. And, you know, folks who want to take this further, volunteer, or be just a part of our sessions, all those information will be provided to you at the end of the session. So having said that, now I would like to hand it over back to Rupa, who is one of the core members of the Bay Area chapter and the lead for many of our data science programs. And she will be introducing the main speaker for the event to all of us, and enjoy the event, guys. Rupa, all yours.
Thank you, Soumya. Hello, everyone. We have, and you know, we are so excited to host our first episode of Tech Talk series on cybersecurity threat analysis and career options. I am privileged to introduce you today's topic as well as our illustrious speaker, Reena. With that, so we are here, we want to learn about risks and cybersecurity programs that are required to keep our data, not just our personal data, our organization's data safe. And at the core of it, it's data everywhere. How we can defend our data using the technologies in cybersecurity. We are going to learn about it today. And how we can drive our career around this, around data and cybersecurity career options, which is what today's topic is. And Rina would be taking us through all that today. Um, we are also going to understand data science, data analysis, security, and different roles in it, and how you could fit yourself in this wide multidisciplinary domain. So when we talk about security, there are threat actors, there are cyber criminals, there are bad guys. We know about good guys, bad guys. How we can detect their techniques, their behaviors, how we can detect their behavioral patterns and identify them in the wild. Do we have the desire to hunt down, detect, identify, and create patterns so that we can stop all these threats? And this is the role of a threat analyst. And Rina will be talking more about it, and she would guide us how we can be one in this domain. Come to cybersecurity and threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is a specialized area in cybersecurity, which is what we will learn today. And there are many roles in it, and how we can develop our career in among those different roles in threat intelligence and in cybersecurity. Security and data science are very much interlaid, interdisciplinary sciences that are used to create solutions that companies are now looking to protect themselves, their data from cyber criminal threats, both internally and externally. When I say internally, it's like, the insider's job that we always hear about, and as well as the external threats. And what is the significance of developing some of the key skills using your data science, data engineering, data analysis skills that you could use to develop your career in this domain? Now, allow me to introduce our speaker today, Rina Madan. She is in the field of cybersecurity for over the last 5+ years. But before that, she had a very long, illustrious career at many renowned companies. She has finished her second master's in computer engineering and cybersecurity specialization from San Jose State University in 2019. And prior to that, Rina worked in many technology and engineering roles at Intel, Cisco, a very long, illustrious career in networking and CPU architecture and business operations, before moving on to Verizon and AWS, where she was into technical marketing and professional services into security and compliance. She's also a part of Women in Cybersecurity organization and is the Vice President of North Carolina chapter. She enjoys mentoring, and which is why she's here with us today. And she lives with her family in North Carolina, but she calls Bay Area as her second home, so she loves to visit Bay Area at least once a year. With that, over to you, Rina.
Zoom is fascinating. Can you hear me? I know Zoom is fascinating. Every time I
we can
find
hear
a new
you, Rina.
feature. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome,
go ahead.
awesome. Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Rupa. Thank you, Soumya, for inviting me to meet all these great data scientists, data lovers, data enthusiasts, and who's taken out time at 5 o'clock in the evening, and they could be doing walking or spending time with their family. But thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. Before sharing the slides, and I'll go through a bunch of slides, I just want to set the stage as Rupa did. There are multiple threat actors. There's basically always every organization, human being physical entity is always at basically risk nowadays, with data being stolen, credit card data being stolen. Even more dangerous, basically, there is also human trafficking, there is murders across, and I can't tell you how much you find out when you go through, when you are in a career of threat intelligence. So if you're fascinated with investigations and you like to dive deep into, the behavior patterns of a threat actor, what are their motivations? What do they really want? Why do they make the attacks happen? Why do they go for the attacks, right? And that's basically what overall threat intelligence is all about. But I'll talk about careers from a data science perspective. And if you're not even interested in that, I'll talk in the broader sense of what careers are available as a tertiary career. Okay. All right, let me share my slide. Okay, I think I might need to be made host quickly. Apologize. Yeah.
Give me a sec. Let me do that.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time. No problem. So any questions right now or for Soumya and Rupa? Can put those on there. And definitely I want to be part of this Women in Big Data group.
You're the host now.
Awesome. Thank you, Rupa. You are amazing. Okay. Let me share. Go to my screen. Can you see my screen now? Can everybody see my screen? Visible? Okay, I'm assuming it's visible. Good? Good to go? Okay. All right, just a quick disclaimer. Whatever I present here, it's basically my own opinion and not opinion of my company. So just want to say that. And after you're learning big data. So, and if you're fascinated with security, cybersecurity, and learn more, please always pay it forward. All right, quickly. So the topics, what I will go through, let me see if I'm being heard and I'm good. Okay, awesome. Topics is what is cybersecurity, and it's actually very multifaceted. I know people have concept that maybe it's just firewalls, application security, but it's multifaceted and has multiple domains across the board. Multiple people, multiple roles are involved in protecting the data that is hosted by a company. What is a threat actor? I think Rupa already discussed that. But I'll go a bit into like type of threat actors and kind of go through a actual attack that happened, which was one of the largest botnet attacks that happened in 2016. It's quite famous, and you can find a lot of documentation on it. Then what is cyber threat intelligence? And then job roles and skills that a threat analyst basically has to apply for those threat analyst type jobs or researcher jobs. And then we'll go into how to acquire that knowledge. If you want to expand, you're curious, you want to learn more, how can you expand your knowledge, right? By reading, researching, taking a certification, and so on. And then let's say you're not interested in threat intelligence, you're maybe interested in the other domains, using your knowledge in data science and data engineering in other domains that I talk about. What are the tertiary roles available, and where are the roles, right? And how can you get started, kind of like that. And that's what I'll talk about. But I'll continue talking about like how can you get started. One of the biggest nuggets that we have is our own one of the biggest resources we have is our own company and the security team in our own company, right? Which we need to take advantage of. Okay, so what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is basically, the term itself means a practice of protecting digital and human assets from cyber attacks and cyber threats. And what about data? Key thing is data, digital data, right? Or data. Can be on paper as well. What are some of the domains? If you are thinking of like cybersecurity, it has known domains are 10 domains, but in the past year, I think it's expanded to literally 20 with cloud being introduced, and of course, cryptocurrency being introduced, right? And also quantum physics, quantum computing being introduced as well to the environment. So there's basically lots of new domains that are being introduced, which is pretty cool. So overall, kind of starting literally like an OSI layer model of IT. So there's physical security, which is, and I'll just giving some examples. There's a lot more involved. Biometrics is one. Like, how do you protect people from not entering your perimeters, or protect only people who are supposed to enter the perimeter, right? How do you protect that? How do you protect your devices, your hard drives, your computer, your laptops? Nowadays, a lot of companies are basically not allowing USB drives to be attached to your computers so that you don't take company data, right? So they do not even allow permission from a hardware perspective. And there's perimeter security, like video cameras, surveillance, and so on. Network and communication security, firewalls, any IS, basically anything that is IP4, IPv6, that our wireless communication that passes through the network, right? How do you protect your data when it's in transit, right? Identity and access management, who gets access to what? That's very critical, right? You cannot allow, especially when you're protecting data, confidential data, right? Who gets access to that confidential data? So that is all defined by identity access management. Also, one of the terms you probably have heard is multi-factor authentication, right? That's used to allow you through VPN connections. Software security is another field. Application security has become quite big. DevSecOps, SSDLC means secure development lifecycle. So when you're on this onset of even developing your code, how do you assure it's secure code that you're developing, right? Through the whole life cycle, software development life cycle. Other area is cryptography, which is very fascinating, a little difficult to learn, but I think if you're interested, it is one of the most fascinating areas. Encryption, ciphers, SHA-1, 2. Again, I won't go bore you with the details, but that is one area. What I think you guys are interested in, information and data security. So how do you protect data when it's at rest, when it's being processed, and when it's in transit? So think about, you are basically ultimately, as a security individual, constantly looking at who has access, how is your data transforming from one system to another, and how is it being transited over the internet, right? And how do you protect it at every layer? So information and data security. And nowadays, of course, privacy is a big one due to GDPR and CPA and laws that are in place, that you cannot share data overseas or store data overseas without using some level of encryption and certification. And there are lots of penalties attached with that. Privacy, of course, how is your data? What rights do you have to protect your own data because of big data being, unstructured data being honed in by multiple companies via social sites and so on. And security operations. Now, all this data is being collected, transforming, transiting. You need a team that constantly watches over your assets and what is exiting your perimeters and what's entering your perimeters. And if it has anything associated with the threat actor, how do you stop it, right? What mitigation steps how do you identify, mitigate? So there is a whole, think about it as a like an alert team, right? You need that in place, and that's another field in itself. Compliance, right? When you want to do business, you're with medical field, right? HIPAA compliance, you probably have heard of that. High trust is another one for protecting your patient data. FedRAMP for the government, and SOX for financial industry. So these are some of them, not all. But compliance is become a huge requirement from all industries for any product they're using, or even protecting their own data. So compliance. Governance, risk, and compliance, that all kind of falls into, okay, fine, you're doing all these things, but who's doing governance? Who's really governing? Who's basically what levels of the system are being run? Are they being patched appropriately? Are people taking training? Are they doing? Are they following policies that you've set in place? Secure processes you've set in place? Who's going to do all that governance, right? So that is a big area of security as well, and risk. Once you are ready to, in your environment, now you have lots of processes that are monitoring, controlling, but now, let's say you want to make change management, what kind of risk is introduced into their environment? For example, like you have a third party that wants to share data with you. Well, are you just going to allow them? No, you're not. You're going to do risk assessment before you allow that to happen. Okay. And there's NIST, which is a standards committee, and there's a framework there available. This is just one of them. There's multiple more. And then one I was going to talk about, is threat intelligence investigation and education. So threat intelligence is basically research of threat actors, behaviors of threat actors, and I'll go into more detail there. But these are some of the key domains that are there. Now, again, cloud security has been introduced as a separate domain in itself. And fraud as well. There's a lot of fraud through credit cards and people snatching basically people's information, banking information, and there's fraudulent activities going on. Okay, so that again, more and more complex the world becomes, more data is introduced, more the security professionals have to work harder and really have to be on top of their game. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to pause and then move to the next slide quickly. Moving backwards. So now you're thinking, any questions, Rupa? All right. Now you're thinking, okay, how does it all fit in? I like the whole domains, a lot of domains. The way an organization or an enterprise works is they want to make sure all domains are covered. There is nowadays for every enterprise, every company has a role of a chief information security officer. They work with the CTO, the CMO, with legal, with finance. They work pretty much under the CISO. And there's a whole, depending on the enterprise and what you're protecting, there is a whole organization under the CISO. Some are, dedicated to identity access management. Others are dedicated to network. Another set is like software applications. What I was going to talk about, Intel sits as security breaches and intelligence, collecting intelligence. What does intelligence mean? Intelligence means having the knowledge of threat actors that are active, right, or even dormant, and what has been their MO to attack, and how do they attack? And what is their motivation to attack? So it doesn't have to do a lot with like technical stuff, but they are almost think about them as FBI investigators or your police detective and so on. So there's constant analytical skills required there, but that's one area. Compliance. So a lot of companies that are large enterprises, they usually have separate teams doing this, but in a smaller organization, sometimes what you will see is a lot of the like network security is given to your IT team or your network team, right? They need to make sure that all their perimeters and edge devices and edge endpoints are secure. They create the data. Probably the system is owned by system or tool is owned by the CISO, under the CISO, and they're kind of collecting the data. They're monitoring it. They have given the contract to a managed services like a SOC managed services like Security Operations Center outside, right? Third party. So sometimes a lot of companies bring in third parties for doing audits, compliant audits, IT audits. Usually supplier risk is internal because you want to have control over who the suppliers are. Business continuity is disaster recovery. So for some of the activities, they hire managed services to come in and actually be their arm, right, or represent them. But that depends again on the company. If if it's in a hospital, right, they're not specialized in security, so they will usually get some third party to do a lot of the work for them. But most organizations. So if you're interested in security, the first place to look is where you work. That's kind of the point I just wanted to make. There are many professionals there in your own organizations which you can tap into. Okay, this is a very busy slide. But what I just want to talk about is threat intelligence provides feed to all systems across the board, across organizations. So again, the function of threat intel is to constantly study threat actor behavior, host that in a library that's available that they can add on to, or you can buy tools from external companies, third parties, and you can host your threat behavior there. You want to, if there is an alert, you feel there is a threat actor that may breach your perimeters because they've done so in their behavior in the past, then you want to alarm or feed into all your systems and make sure they're aware of what is the specific signature of that threat actor that's going about to attack you, right? So you study you basically research, you study what's happening in the industry, you study what has happened recently, how the systems have been attacked by other companies, for other companies or government. You work with the government, but you are basically the central feed to all systems in your company. A lot of times, again, if the company cannot afford and they're small, they buy this service. They buy basically threat intel reports and a tool from an external company. There are multiple companies out there that sell threat intel reports to an organization or enterprise or a hospital or financial institute or so on, right? So depending on how much you're willing to spend and have resources doing this, many, again, companies either host them or have them coming in from outside. Some even, it's called, again, so the word is, I will use this again, CTI, Cyber Threat Intelligence. I'll use the CTI. So this is what I'm meaning, Cyber Threat Intelligence. And that's the field. The field is called Cyber Threat Intelligence. And many companies even buy CTI tools from external companies. So they don't own their tools. So that's another option if you're looking for careers. You don't have, first you can start within your own company, but if you're interested, there are many companies developing tools and collecting. Basically, their role is to create the models using machine learning about threat behavior so that it makes it easier to find that other next threat actor out there, right? Okay, I'm going to pause again. Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, now you're thinking, okay, sounds fascinating or sounds interesting. I want to know what a job role it looks like. What do they do, right? And then if your thought is, well, I'm interested in data analytics and big data, and that's where I want to take my career, how does that fit into threat intel, right? A landscape or ecosystem? How can I help, or how can I be part of that? I think, Rupa, there's a few people waiting in the waiting room. I apologize. Okay. So how can I take my career there? And if you're not, again, interested in threat intel, there are multiple domains, as we talked about. What are other options, career paths and options for you, right? And how can you start with some basic certificates or getting some experience or reading more about it? The way I went about it, again, I started very late in my career because I did not understand the full breadth, like I said, that all the domains of cybersecurity. Since I was in the networking industry, I pretty much just thought firewalls was the best way to protect the company. So that was my limited knowledge. So then when I started studying more about the domains, it kind of opened my eyes that there are multiple areas in cybersecurity. Okay. All right, so threat actor, right? I'm going to spend a little time here. So who's behind the attack? I kind of like this picture. It's typical. That's not what they look like usually. They don't wear masks and things like that. They're usually people who are living next door to you. They are people who are living in different countries. There are people who get paid to do this. There are people who are activists who do this. Everybody's motivated differently to be a threat actor or to go breach something, right? Some are motivated by money. Some are actually very politically motivated. And there are more of those than even, sorry. All right. Okay. There are many out there with different motivations, right? So what type of threats are there? So the largest one, and you can also read this on Verizon publishes multiple reports. Oh, I don't know what happened. Rupa, I'm out of slide show somehow. Okay. So there, I'll continue. So multiple actors out there. They are basically threat actors that are so multiple types of attacks, I would say, or threats, right? Social engineering lately has been one of the biggest one. DDoS, what is a DDoS attack? DDoS attack is when you take either a web firewall or a firewall, right? And you attack it, like you basically do a continuous attack of it on that IP. It's like maybe 1 terabytes of attack you're going at a time, continuous attack, right? So what you're trying to is brute force break that firewall. And that's usually a DDoS attack. And it happens over the internet usually. Supply chain attacks. I'll tell you a good story here. So Target, there, I think probably people remember at one point, I think it was 2014 or 2011, 2009, I remember. Target had a breach and like 10,000 credit card records got stolen within literally like 5 minutes. Okay, and multiple stores were attacked. And the way they were attacked is actually there was a HVAC vendor who used to come in and fix the HVAC systems in Target. And they would log in, Target would expect them to log into their system and study, put their timesheet in there, or they log into their system. And that IP was not protected. That interface was not protected. And that's how the attack happened. And I mean, it's such a minor thing, but look, such a big attack happened, right? So it's very interesting. So again, like I said, there are nation state actors who are motivated geopolitically. That's another thing I'll tell you, Ukraine war, right? There has been so many geopolitical and hacktivist actors active right now at this point, trying to break into Ukraine systems to study basically where they're going, what they're doing, and also Russian community has been protected from watching the news. They're basically locking down VPNs, right? So no one from outside can get into their systems or even breach their systems. So there's a lot of hackers kind of active and alive right now. One major attack, and I won't spend too much time on it, but the way what happens is the way a threat intel analyst studies the threat actor is they study what is called a TTP. What is their technique, what tools they're using, and what procedures the threat actor is using. And that's what they collect. They investigate and collect that data. And I have I think the slides, you can probably watch this later, but this is a really cool slide on how FBI actually found the Mariah attackers. And these are 3 young men, 22, 21, 22 from New Jersey. And they're just, trying their luck and say, oh, let's make an attack happen, right? Having fun. And they had no other motivation in mind. They just like, what can we breach? What can we break? And they caused one of the biggest DDoS attacks, basically, in the industry. Through multiple hundreds and thousands of IoT devices were they downloaded a malware into IoT devices and shut down all the systems. Okay. So the way a threat analyst studies, what they study is basically more behavior patterns. They are not concerned with what IP at that initial point. They just want to find them first, what they're doing, what kind of activities they're doing, and then they really start honing into the data, right? And following the data. It's like following the breadcrumbs, as they say, right? But they are true investigators. Like they're looking for method of operation, they're looking for signatures, and that's how they find evidence. All right. So TTP is a word. Just remember that or note it down somewhere. You can do more research on it. It's an industry term. All right, I won't spend again too much time. There's in threat intelligence, there's tactical that's focused on actually how the attack happens and how do you protect it with the tools that you have available in your operations. There's operational. There are teams that do threat hunting. There are SOC analysts, vulnerability managers, means they basically do pen testing and manage, are looking out for what vulnerabilities get released by your company in their software. Incident response is one where once a threat actor is found, then immediately then incident response gets active and starts collecting the evidence. Because anytime your company gets breached, one of the things within 72 hours, this is a requirement in the industry, is that you you basically publish a communication, you do a media announcement so that other companies don't get impacted. So you have to do a write-up, you have to announce the breach, you have to show what really happened. That's why, again, media and communication is a big component of security as well. And then your key stakeholders are strategic, which are your CISO, your information officer, your CTO, that need to know how the attack happened. And, if there is financial losses involved, then they need to be aware that, do we take the risk and pay off this attacker, or do we just basically, or we remove all the systems and restart again, or what do we do with, what are the quick strategic things that we can do? So strategy. Okay. Moving backwards. All right. Rupa, I'm good with time. And any questions? Okay. I have, okay, there are questions coming in right now. Okay. Maybe you can hold off and then we can answer the questions. Okay. So what is the role in this field? Usually a CTI analyst is a very common role. Threat intelligence expert is an analyst. You start off as a junior analyst, move to a senior analyst, then a principal. So that's one rung that is there. Other is a forensics expert. So they basically study digital patterns, right? So there's also studies in that. So forensic expert, malware researcher. These are very honed in experts. They have quite a bit of experience in malware, identifying malware signatures. They know how to use the tools. I mean, there I think about like 10,000 worldwide malware researchers. That's it. It's a very specialized field. And then threat researcher, like your role is again to study patterns, behavior patterns, and so on. So you would be doing research at many companies. The skills you need to have is investigation background. Okay. Technical skill is expected, but I think you're more of a detective, right? So the skill sets here are a little different. You need to be multilingual many times. You need to know how to do reverse engineering, think through every step, right? Go backwards really on how a social engineering attack happened. So you need to study patterns is what you do. You need to be expert in forensics. There are many experts in human trafficking, actually, because they understand how human trafficking takes place, which countries are, trafficking humans, and how. And these guys or women who are doing, or people who are doing human trafficking, they operate over the dark web. They don't operate on like a normal internet. They have ciphers and codes they communicate in. So you have to be very aware on how they are transporting people, right? And what's patterns and so on. Social engineering, as I talked about. Defending backwards. How do you defend a defend in a data or a digital signature backwards. Intelligence framework, emotional intelligence, you have to think like the attacker. So you really have to kind of step in their shoes, right? Writing and communication is big because you're going to do a lot of reports. These are like lengthy reports on your studies that you do. So it can be papers that you publish or a report that you publish on a regular basis. There's another field is political science and world economics. We need to be very aware of world economics and macroeconomics, microeconomics, financials, like how actually fraud happens, right? So these skills kind of evolve over time. And these people are very, they get paid very well, but they are very far and few and hard to find. So how do you develop those skills, right? There are some schools that actually start you off and help you. There are courses that you can take as well. But again, you have to develop the skills over time. It's not something that you just come out of a school and you're going to get a senior analyst position or an expert position. Usually you work up to those. I think, do all researchers require a PhD? No, they do not require a PhD. Many come from basically investigative background, basically. So they might have been in a political science role. They might have been actually a journalist even. They threat researchers or journalists sometimes. But they're given a certain type of work, right? You might not be given many technical assignments, but you'll be given assignments like geopolitical assignments, right? Because a lot of times what happens is, let's say you want to throw a government, there are countries that hire threat actors and hacktivists to go spread false information. So, sometimes on Facebook, you get these feeds that, putting down a government or a person. It's not necessarily a human being posting it. These are hacktivists who are posting that news so that they can lead you to form an opinion and even overthrow a government. So it's not necessarily everybody expressing their opinion. It's a lot of times even one political party going against another party, right? Or to overthrow them. So yeah, it's like an information war. Exactly. So it is very fascinating. I will tell you, it's super fascinating field. So even I think very interested, definitely seek to learn some skills there and see if you can utilize your skills, if you investigative type skills, right, to get into these kind of roles. And if not, there's always tertiary roles. And I actually worked as a technical program manager at Amazon for a tool for threat intelligence. I wasn't a threat analyst, and I self-studied I did a lot of self-studying to understand all the skill sets that are required, and a lot of books and courses. So again, if you want to enter, there are many companies who do research and you can join them. And especially if you're in data science, you are basically providing a feed to the threat analyst. You may not be the threat analyst, but you're providing a lot of feed to them, right? Because they understand the patterns, but every human being can't understand every pattern. So to make those correlations, event correlations, to make the predictive analytics, right? Machine learning AI gets used quite a bit in this field, so that every time you're running into the same pattern, you don't need a human every time. Kind of some patterns are very obvious, and you know how the attack is going to take place. Okay. Let me see if there's a question I can answer. Okay, I'll come back to your question, Kimberly. Definitely, I saw your question, pretty fascinating. So now you're thinking, well, do I fit in, right? Yes, you definitely fit in. You are a team. You are a team that's already kind of fascinated with big data, structured, unstructured data. You are learning about artificial intelligence. You will probably already hone skills in that area. So to make any analysis, right, you need basically to decipher data that's tagged, that's stored in a data lake, that's processed, ETL'd, formulated. You're not going to immediately I mean, a threat analyst not expected to actually be a data scientist. That's not the expectation from them. They need the nuggets. They can provide you like what they're looking for, but they need the nuggets. Like, let's say they saw a article on a certain URL, right? Or many times, I'll tell you, this is again not confidential, so I'd share this. Many times pictures are posted in the pixels. There is information being transferred from one group to another, right? So they understand that there's a picture they came across, they studied the picture, they saw the pattern, and they understand there's some political rift happening, and messaging is, secret messaging is going on across the border, across the board, right? To pass certain information. So they will go after like what websites are posting this, right? Or what is the group that's posting it, right? And why are they post? What are they motivated with? So that's what they're studying. They're not studying like, they're not go and type every URL, figure out where the URL is in the big amount of data in the social media, right? So they need data analysts, they need data engineers who will process the data, who will tag the data appropriately, who will create those patterns of IP or URLs or emails that look like bad threat actor behavior, right? And they want to kind of correlate and tag them and enrich the data so that's available for the analyst. So there is a huge component of data involved in collecting data, processing data, machine learning, AI, deep learning in the CTI field. And the role is called a CTI, or Threat Intelligence Data Scientist, Threat Intelligence Data Engineer, right? So at AWS, we had one person total, not one, I would say 5 people dedicated to creating systems that collects data from multiple sources. And then we would just give them requirements, and they would sort through the data, they would tag the data, they would make it available. And then we asked them to create patterns around that data. So we had a whole team that we would go to that would provide the data, the pipeline of the data that was needed. So it's a very critical role in threat analytics. So if you're interested, that's another path to enter the industry and work for one of the maybe leading developers of CTI platforms, or even a federal government or research agency that's doing research, right? So that would be one place that your skill set would be very valuable. All right. Let's move on to the next, moving backwards. So how do I acquire, how do I start learning, right? And I was, again, like I said, I self-learned. I did not have I had one mentor, that's it, but they didn't have time at the time, but they were really nice, but they guided me quite a bit to at least point me to books. They said, okay, read this book, go to this site, go online. So my favorite tool, my favorite place was Cybrary. Cybrary is basically courses for cybersecurity professionals. And I took a lot of courses there. These are online courses, but now at that point, whatever's available, I read books. I read these 3 things I read, and I loved it. I think I learned most. The CTI framework will provide you a lot of knowledge on what are the basically steps or processes a threat intel analyst follows, right? Cyber kill chain, how does the attack take place? How does the attacker, there's actually a method to the madness. So how does the attacker attack, right? And another is MITRE attack framework, which has a framework and tells you like there is that holding pattern. Then there is a insertion. So what they're doing is for scanning, then they're inserting, then they insert the malware, and it sometimes just sits there. So they're observing, watching, and then the attack happens. So many times it's very sophisticated and it doesn't happen immediately. So what they'll do, many in technical terms, in a Linux object, right? You will modify the code and you enter malware into the Linux object. Now that's in your libraries. That's not even at a point where you're regularly even looking at it. You probably, update your libraries maybe, once a quarter or once a year. You don't really update your libraries. But guess what? Now you have a dormant malware sitting there, and you're just transitioning it from one system to another as you're designing your applications. So that's one way. In your data, you can put a cipher in your data, right? That basically transforms your data as it goes on, so that you can you basically can follow the cipher in like Bitcoin, right? You follow the cipher so you can break the chain. So those kind of sophisticated attacks are happening. Sometimes very simple, like IP. They'll attack the IP, and they'll. I'll tell you the funny one. In Vegas, the fish tank had an IoT device, right? It was measuring temperature of the fish tank. The attacker was just generally just checking out IPs. They saw there was they saw an opening. They went to the next IP, and they said, "Oh, looks like a machine. Now I'm going to go to the next." So then the admin data, the password and login data was available. They saw that, and they said, "Oh, okay, now, this is a casino. Okay, I see the activities around. I see the activities going on. The events are saying, okay, some kind of activity, money exchange is happening." So then they went into the main system, and then they basically transferred the money into their banking account. So lot of simple things that you can protect, like password. We don't think about it many times, but having a strong password, not having admin. It may not seem like a big deal, but guess what? If they find an entrance, right? That's all they need. Just one little entrance, like one window open, and the attack can take place. Right. So those things you kind of, your company is teaching you how to protect your data, yourself, and your systems. Pay attention. The other areas, there are certificates available. The simplest, the not simplest, but I wouldn't say simple. It took me a while to take it, but the easiest one is CompTIA, network and security. Those are easier to, meaning they're not that difficult to pass. The higher, there is a CTIA certification from EC Council, and again, that's that you can take that. Then the organization ISC score. These are recognized by all of the whole security industry. So CISSP or CCSP. CISSP is information security professional, and this is cloud security professional. Okay. SANS, these are expensive courses, but SANS has Forensics 578 that you can take. If your company can allow you to take it, I would say take advantage of that. Degrees, there are multiple degrees that are offered in digital forensics that you can look into, and courses across Coursera and edX. And the World Institute of World Politics, has a most fascinating security degree there. So if you're interested in looking at that. So they have master's and PhD programs. And there are now multiple schools that have opened up, but these are ones that are, well-renowned, and people kind of take their courses from there, and they're accredited and recognized certifications. Okay. Do you want me to answer questions quickly? Then I can move to the just last two slides. So what other role options you have if you're not if you think, okay, it's I don't have the time to study everything and go learn everything, but can I enter one of these? Yes. You can become a security IT auditor in your in the CISO organization, become a risk manager, technical project manager, program manager, product manager. If that's your expertise, you can jump in and kind of use your existing skills and apply to jobs that are in the security industry. Going to privacy, security, compliance is another place, but IT auditing is like the easiest job to get into. Technical writing, if you're interested in that, or technical recruiting of security, if you're interested in that. If you're a software developer already, there are plenty of opportunities. Plenty of opportunities if you're a data scientist or data engineer. And then if you're in legal. These are some of the companies that, like I talked about, have teams who have threat intel teams, excuse me, apologize. Mandiant got acquired by Google recently. They are a threat intel research company. Verizon, you would not believe it, but they have the strongest security team. Recorded Future is another one. CrowdStrike, Cisco, they all have threat intel teams, and they publish to other companies. Also, in the government, that's where a lot of the research comes from. is the National Security Agency, and NSA. CISA is another one, FBI. And they're always hiring engineers and data scientists because that's who they need to think about it. That's who they need to support the threat intel staff. MITRE is another one that develops platforms and frameworks for threat intel. So again, some of them, but there are some options there. And I just wanted to, I had this slide just to kind of show all the companies that are there around threat intel. So that's just that's small list that I showed earlier, but these are there are many companies out there in Bay Area, and a lot of them are out of Bay Area actually. So Palo Alto Networks is one of them as well. So if you're interested, there's a list here. I think I am done, so I can answer questions now. And Rupa, do you want me to answer questions and then we can move to your slides quickly? Okay, so let's take questions. I'll go up to top and start seeing if the question. Okay, Kimberly, I know Kimberly, you had a question. What projects do you recommend to start a portfolio in the area, and how to start building a portfolio? What kind of projects can I start with? Very, very good question. So I would say initially start studying the threat attacks recently happened, any recent in the last 5 years even. Start writing reports on it. Start writing a report on it, the TTP report, like techniques, tactics, tools, and procedures. How did it happen? A lot of threat analysts write reports, okay? And that actually you can show on your job interview that, here's you studied a threat behavior, or there are also competitions, by the way, on, if you're interested, a lot of companies host competitions. Like I know Google has a program if you can break their code, right? Cisco, I know, also has a program if you can break their code. They even offer money for that, by the way. So threat hunting is what it's called. And if you do some assignments there, there's also a site called Juicebox, where you can do look at application security. And if you like to code, then yeah, you can break things there. And Juicebox allows you to basically set up an environment, break into an environment. And so that's something you can showcase as well to your employer. It's not considered a bad thing if you can break into things. It's considered a good thing. So for a project, I would recommend researching, writing report. That's one path. Second is if you're technical, want to do some programming and coding, you like to break things, also participate in CTFs that are being held in your town. There are a lot of, I think on Meetup, there are a lot of CTFs happening. And if you can get a certificate out of it, I think that would be really valuable, because you really have to use your intelligence to break into things during CTFs. Not intelligence, I would say, but you use those behavior patterns to study the behavior pattern. And then, so there are a lot of CTFs, then events that get held in your area. So that's one thing. So I hope I answered your question. If not, type in, you have another question I can answer. Do all researchers jobs require PhD? No, not necessarily. If you want, you can definitely pursue a PhD. The UPenn offers a PhD, but not required. A lot of researchers I worked with actually came from software industry. One came from FBI, another came from the armed forces. One was a journalist actually whom I worked with. So their background was actually journalism. Another person who came from basically a political science degree. So you don't need a PhD. Yeah, information. Okay, Kimberly. Okay. Where can I develop the skills associated with the area if I'm a person who learns from YouTube videos, online courses, not exactly enrolling in school? Yeah, don't need to enroll in school. I watch a lot of YouTube videos too to learn. Type in CTI, cybersecurity, threat intelligence. There are so many videos out there on the knowledge area itself. Other thing you can do is there are companies like who provide like Mandiant. Go on Mandiant site or CrowdStrike. There is so much material. They literally teach you how to do threat intel, and they have free courses as well. So I took advantage of that. Not many books out there, I'll tell you. That was really hard for me to find books out there. But yeah, YouTube has a lot. There are actually forums on YouTube where they get together and talk about CTI tools. So attend those forums. Those are free, and those are really great as well. Okay. All right. Thank you. I hope I answered your question, but good question. All right. Dropping off. Yeah. There, the links, Grace, are in the slide. So once you get the slide, you can, I think, click on them and get all the, I made sure I linked everything. So it's available to the audience, to everybody. So everything can be linked. And by the way, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can, if I can answer any questions or provide you more links. A lot of things I have in like Word docs, I can just kind of send it to you. I couldn't share everything in like 4 or 5 slides. So, okay, so slide decks, yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to make you the host, Rupa, so you can take over. I apologize if I went over. I think I can talk for hours and hours on this subject. I'm going to make you host. All right, Rupa, you are host now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience. Appreciate it. Any other questions I didn't answer? So, yeah.
I guess people were looking for the juice box that you mentioned.
Okay, let me get that and I can post it. Give me 1 second. I didn't keep it ready.
And also there was, I think you already talked about certification, Reena. Thank you so much. I'm just quickly going over the questions that are not answered yet. Most of them you already answered. So Robert, I already answered his question, Reena, about the security clearance. If you already have a security clearance, will that enhance your chances? And I told yes. Having security clearance is a great plus. You know, if you are in the market, you will be definitely, you know, way over a lot of other candidates. Because especially for federal government agencies who are looking for candidates with already pre-certified or having security clearance. So your chances are much higher if you have the basic minimum required tech skills for that role. So it will definitely put you at the top. Then I think you are looking for Juicebox. And oh yeah, Grace had one question about CTF. What's CTF again?
Yeah, what is CTF? These are competitions, basically cybersecurity threat competitions, and they're called CTF. So you look, if you look them up in your town, on meetups, they advertise many times on meetups and so on. So you can basically go there and
capture the flag. Thanks, Chanda.
Capture the flag. Yes, sorry, apologies. It was coming to my mind, top of my mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know what they did with the juice box site, but
so I'm going to share.
Oh, there it is. It's Juice Shop. It's actually Juice Shop, not Juice Box. So I apologize. So here, I'll put the link here, and so you can go to it. Copy. Keep going. Sorry, I'm just going to post the link. That's all I'm going to do.
I'm just going to go over some of the last few slides, Reena.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Reena, for a great talk. A lot of information, and I'm sure everyone wants to, you know, hang in for a couple more minutes. We are almost at the end of the presentation, and Reena has already answered most of the questions, but feel free to connect with her. Thanks, Reena, for making yourself available, and, you know, people can connect with her on LinkedIn. She already talked about the certificates in cybersecurity. These are some of the other certificates that Rina has put into the slide deck. You will all receive the slide deck after the event. IT risk fundamental certificate, Rina, if you want to talk about that real quick, or
Yeah. So there are 2-3 organizations that are ISACA and ISACA and then ISA, ISSA, but ISC and ISC Square. So ISC Square and ISACA are the ones that offer a certification. And again, these are these are just certificates if you want to go into risk assessment and be a risk manager. So there is a whole chart. If you type like certification cybersecurity, there's a huge chart. Depending on what field or what domain you want to go in, you want to acquire those certificates accordingly. But I would say just generally CompTIA will open doors for you. Trust me, it's pretty, it's not a difficult certificate, but it'll be easy to obtain, and then it'll open a lot of doors for you if you want to start off with. And of course, go to CISSP, pull up CISSP book, and just learn about the domains to get familiar with the verbiage and the domains, right? I think that's what someone told me, and it was very helpful to just understand what are the areas in security, and then whatever fascinates you, right? I worked in identity access management before I got into threat intel, so because it fascinated me. So whatever fascinates you, then pick that domain, learn that domain, around that domain.
Thank you, Rina. Thank you so very much. We are almost at the end. So I have maybe one last slide. So, everyone, if you are not already part of Women in Big Data, if you would like to, stay connected with us, and we will be having a lot more different tech topics and, speakers and different events. We have today Anath here, on the event, as well as Anu. They are from the Bay Area chapter core team. They are also involved in arranging different programs, different mentoring, tech mentoring events for the community. So this is one of the ways you can be a member or be part of, our different initiatives here at Women in Big Data Bay Area chapter. You can join our LinkedIn group, meetup, any local chapter in your area, in your city. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, you can join any chapter, any local chapter, wherever you are, and become a core team member, a volunteer. We are always looking for people like you, who would like to get involved, volunteer, and of course, learn and grow. So with that, I thank everyone for taking the time late in the evening on a weekday, wherever you are from, joining in. Thank you so much, Rina, for a great talk. And I'm sure we can continue. I'm sure you can continue for hours to share all your wealth of knowledge, but feel free to connect with Rina, everyone, and ask your questions, shoot her any email. She has a lot to share. And thanks, Rina, for your time.
Thank you. And yeah, if you need to, we can grab some time outside of here and just talk if you like. Just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.